Yo, what's up, everybody? Super excited to introduce you one of my favorite dudes. This dude is a cleaner, straight up. He's such an inspiration, and man, yeah, it's awesome to see what he's creating in life. And just wanted to kind of share some of his success tips because I think this guy's on the rise, and definitely wanted to pick your brain about a few things. But why don't you give us a little story about how we first met?
Yeah, sure. So, as a quick intro, my name is Brandon Ngai. I met Davidson by actually cold calling him. He was a brother in my fraternity, but from a different school, I think Rutgers. And just saw him super active on social media. He was doing amazing things in the community. And as a young professional, I was just looking to reach out to certain people that were just doing big things and people that I could aspire to be like. And so I just kind of gave him a call. And I guess my company name didn't really resonate too well with him because he had a lot of people reach out to him beforehand. For full disclosure, I work as a financial advisor over at Northwestern Mutual, and yeah, so apparently he's been reached out a ton of times. People are making a lot of touch points, and he wasn't too big of a fan of it. But I just kept following up, and just trying to come from a genuine place. And I won't lie, he blew me off a few times, but nonetheless, we finally got together, really hit it off. He's like a big brother to me, and very thankful to have been able to be persistent enough to finally get in front of him.
No, I appreciate that, man. It's just interesting because I think it was yesterday actually. I just interviewed, or was it 2 days ago? I interviewed like one of my mentors who you met, like William Lee, and I reached out to him the same way actually. I was just like cold calling him from TriNet, and he was like, "Dude, honestly, the only reason why I even got back to you is because like you're Asian, and I'm just trying to help an Asian brother out, you know?" I was like, "Oh shit, all right, thank you." And then yeah, so like I kept like he's just such a busy guy because he has like so many businesses and he works with like a ton of entrepreneurs. So I was always like, dude, like let's just meet up. And then he'd be like, all right, swing by the office. So I was like, all right, down. So I dropped everything I was doing. I went down there, and he's like, yo, man, what's up? Like, what's your story? I was like, yeah, man, like I'm just trying to help out other Asian brothers out here, you know? He's like, yeah, like teach me your ways, you know? And he was just like kind of talked about his story about how a lot of like Asians, like I feel like they're like they don't want to like take the riskier route of like starting your own business, right? It's like become a doctor, become a lawyer, become a more like traditional path. But
Become an actuary.
yeah, exactly. I think that's why you got into that, right?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I was doing some, I guess, soul searching as to what I want to do as a full-time career. But as you can all imagine, at 16 years old, it's pretty difficult. So I
Yeah.
kind of just chose the most secure job I could find online based off of what one of my good friends' father did. He was an actuary, and I knew that when you looked it up on Google, there was pretty much 0% unemployment rate. It was one of the top five jobs based off of happiness. I think freedom of time, income, as well as just overall lifestyle. And I came to realize in college that it was just so dry, so boring, and just something that wasn't suitable for me. So after college, I did some soul searching again, and I eventually took my love for numbers and my love from people, which I learned through the fraternity, and was able to fall upon financial planning kind of by accident. And it's been a pretty incredible experience so far.
Yeah, and why don't you share with us? Because I do think like a lot of people that don't really know too much about it, like immediate have like an immediate reaction, right? Like I'm sure, like let's just say your job is not the easiest job in the world, in my opinion.
Sure, sure.
So
So shed some light on what financial planning is.
yeah, like I guess why are you so passionate about it, and why do you think so many people are so like resistant from the first initial like outreach, right? Obviously once they get
Sure.
different, but yeah.
Okay. Well, the passion I think really came from the experience. The experience was that overall, every single person that I reached out to, no one was ever taught proper or even fundamentals of financial planning. Like this wasn't taught in general schooling. This wasn't taught in college, and a lot of people may look up to their parents, but at the end of the day, they weren't taught either necessarily. They're just learning from experiences. So because of it, I just found such a passion that I was able to play another mentor role like I did in the fraternity and be able to give back, teach people, and be able to impact them positively, which is one of the biggest factors. Like the first thing I always tell people is that what got me into this career was definitely the compensation, was definitely the lifestyle it could provide me and my family in the future. But really what kept me here is definitely the clients. Like being able to work with people and be the focal point of their financial future and be able to help them create financial peace of mind is one of the most impactful things that I never thought I'd be able to create. So
Mm.
being able to break down some of the barriers that a lot of people think about, because first of all, people get cold calls from financial advisors all the time. So that's already one of the first negatives. Second of all, there are movies like Wall Street or like Wolf of Wall Street or other big names where essentially they associate a financial planner with a stockbroker, right? Someone who's just trying to sell you stock, sell you some sort of investment fund, or then you have the insurance agent who's just trying to sell you insurance. But then you have the fee-based financial planner who's just trying to spit out a certain number of plans each month, charge some sort of fee on it, and then get compensated through that, right? So at the end of the day, there are of course a lot of good and a lot of bad, but if you find someone that you really like, really trust, and that you can work with a partnership, they can find different ways for you to be financially successful in ways that you cannot even imagine, right? Whether it's tax strategies, whether it's investment strategies and philosophies, because most people, when they think about an investment plan, they think strictly about rate of return, right? But there's so many other factors to go in on top of that. Rate of return is only one driver to the plan, right? There are multiple other variables that need to be taken into account to make sure that you actually get from point A to point B in the most efficient way.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like, and it's interesting because like, if you don't mind sharing, like, how old are you?
I'm 24, turning 25 in September, but my
Right.
youngest client is 0, and my oldest client's about 70.
Well, I guess the point I was trying to make is that, like most people at the age of 24, they're not like they might think like, oh, I'm too young. Like, who am I to tell people that are like 70-year-olds, like how they live their financial, how they live their lives, right? So I guess like, how'd you get
Mm-hmm.
that initial like mental barrier? Because I know for me, like, I'd be like, dude, like these people are literally twice my age.
Yeah, that comes definitely with it comes from having a lot of conversations with a lot of different people and realizing that age, and I know it sounds so cliche, but age simply is just a number.
Yeah.
Age doesn't necessarily quantify experience in certain areas. Like I would much rather trust a 25-year-old resident with my life than a 60-year-old architect,
Right.
right? Because they have very different specializations. So because I specialize in finance and I've decided to just surround myself and just absolutely dive into all the different financial planning techniques and strategies, podcasts, and just learning from other much more successful advisors than myself and being able to leverage their knowledge and their tools to be able to help these older clients is really the way that I found comfort, right? Where I found the confidence to be able to confidently help these people that had genuine and real needs, but just might not have even known it, right? Because you don't really, I find that people oftentimes don't know what the issue is until they're hit with it,
Right.
right? But my whole motto is trying to be proactive, not reactive. So I want to be able to use my older clients and advisors' hindsight to be my younger clients' foresight
Hmm.
and be able to help them understand some of the mistakes that other people have made and have them learn from it. Because like one of the biggest quotes that one of my mentors told me was that a smart person learns from their mistakes, a wise person learns from the mistakes of others.
Right.
So I've always tried to use that mentality of they're like, oh yeah, I'll do it myself, and if something comes up, I'll figure it out. Like, why not just get in front of it? Why not be proactive and just put in the protective measurements so that if something happens in the future, if taxes are super high, if the market goes down, whatever the case may be, we have a safe plan B and we've walked through it already. Because at the end of the day, if we know everything that can go wrong and we know how to make it go right, there is no question anymore. Now you have full peace of mind.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up the age and the wisdom thing. So I'm listening to a podcast right now. This guy who he was essentially like kind of brought in as like the old they call it like the elder wisdom at for Airbnb. So like
Mm,
his everyone around him are all these like hotshot like tech like billionaires and people that are like really talented. But there were two things. He was like, man, like I can't believe like I'm learning so much from them about the tech industry because I knew nothing about this. But at the same time, like they learned so much about me and like the hospitality and so he sold like I think he had like 30 hotels that he owned, like a boutique. So he's like super well known in the hotel industry, and then he sold all that I think for like I forget how many hundreds of millions of dollars, but he kind of like had to like essentially adopt a beginner mindset, and it was like so hard for him because like he was in the beginning because he was like man like literally everyone that's around me is like 25 years old, and here I am like hey how do you teach me how to use Zoom or teach me how to use like WebEx and like all these things, right? So this is interesting. We can be very successful, like, let's just say we could be like an amazing doctor or a lawyer, but maybe in our finances we're not as skilled, right? Like maybe we're not, maybe we're like at like minor leagues, right? Versus like hiring someone like you who plays in like the major leagues. Like okay, well I this is all I do every day. It's like okay, like that makes sense. Like I trust you with this area where maybe I'm not as proficient in.
yep, for sure. And I think the one thing to keep in mind too is that um, we hire professionals all the time for so many things, right? Like realistically, if someone wanted to, they could probably Google a bunch of stuff and try to figure out and diagnose themselves. But we have all done that on WebMD, right? I've self-diagnosed myself with 1,001 different things every day. But at the end of the day, having a professional is not only just to leverage their knowledge, but it's also to leverage having an accountability partner. I
Mm,
think that's one of the biggest things I am with my clients too, is that I'm simply just an accountability partner. There are a lot of clients in my like that I work with that probably would be very successful with or without me, specifically without me. But it's just the fact that now I'm enhancing their plan as an overall, and just having someone in their corner just helps them sleep at night, And that's the biggest thing, is that even though they might have been okay, having someone professionally trained tell them that they're going to be okay is an added value that is probably unmeasurable.
hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Similar to like, hiring like a gym trainer or a meditation coach, or, you have certain areas where like, yeah, I'm sure you can be fine on your own. Like, yeah, like that's fine. But because I hire, a coach for specifically mindfulness, a coach for more of the financial aspects, I feel like that's when you're able to succeed because you're letting people in, you're not trying to do everything on your own.
Yep. It's all about leveraging time and resources. Like if you want to put in all the time on the weekend to research different equities or to keep up with all the different new tax laws and all that kind of stuff, by all means, go do it. But if you'd rather go spend time with your family, spend time with your spouse, or go out and travel and just deleverage that and deleverage that to someone else, or leverage someone else and deload that, then that's really where the resource becomes.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, right? It's sort of I feel like every business is moving to that model, right? Because I think because of the invention of technology and people are like, all right, I'll just let the experts do what they do best. I'll just focus on what I'm good at, whatever that may be.
Hmm.
Whether it's like good at making podcasts or writing or copywriting or whatever it is. Like I'll just focus on that, and then I'll hire the experts that are really good at these certain things. Boom, done. I can move on and just be like more peace of mind. Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
yeah. No, man. Well, I definitely want to talk. I'm curious about your mentality. Like, I feel like you have like a pretty, like, you're super ambitious. Like, I guess, like, what prompted all that? Like, because I feel like that doesn't stem from nothing, right? Like, did you have influences? How did that all start?
Well, that was actually something that I really thought about too when I was starting this career, and people were telling me that there's a 13% success rate to become a fifth year advisor, And then once you become a fifth year advisor, I think that there's like a 90% chance that you make it a career for life.
Hmm.
Um, so those metrics, just being a numbers guy, were like pretty astonishing. That like if I can just, fight it out for 5 years and just
Years has-
do the things I need to do. What?
How many years has it been so far?
2.5. So
Okay.
I'm halfway there.
All right.
Yeah, I just gotta keep grinding. But in regards to my mentality, I think it's mostly just uh, and something I went through landmark actually by doing some reflecting was that I was raised in a household where I was raised to be right. I was raised to be right. So therefore, when I set my mind to something and I do something, I do my best and everything in my power to not quit it. Like I didn't switch out of action. Like I entered actuarial in freshman year, and I knew I wasn't right for actuarial science in freshman year. But I just didn't quit it. I did all I had to do to try to at least escape by and graduate, and I did. Like I graduated with like a 3.2. It's nothing spectacular, but
It's better than I did.
I graduated with it. Nonetheless, I still graduated with a degree. But once I just kind of set my mind to something, it's just kind of like that's it. Like you're doing it now. And like once I found a passion for it, I think that my ambition really just comes from the fact that I love it. I can actually walk into the office, walk up to my computer, get on the phone, and just do what I love. And that's really where the ambition comes from, is the fact that I genuinely enjoy it. Because even though I have to fight through like all the thunderstorms and whatever the case may be to get to the rainbows are so worth it. Because the relationships I've built from this career, like even with you, I reflect and I say, if I wasn't in this career, I never would have met Davidson, never would have met half the people that I'm super tight with.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to think about. So like, just got to keep on pushing.
Yeah, man. No, I mean that's inspiring because like honestly, like, when you do get a lot of these rejections, like the first 3 or 4 times I said no, like I guess what I'm still curious as to like, because most people I think they'd be like, I fuck this guy, like he's not worth my time. You know what I mean? Or like I something else better to do. But what I guess
Yeah.
to figure out like what still like because what's separating you from everyone else, right? Because I feel like most people would just be like, all right, well, why even bother? So I guess like what's the thought process behind that?
Well, the thought process why I keep on reaching out, even when people say no, is because it's the whole motto of what if.
Right,
I always just ask myself, what if he says yes though?
right,
What if we finally get face to face and we hit it off and he becomes one of my best clients? Or what if he knows the CEO of Tesla and can introduce me to that guy? It's the whole thing of just what if,
right.
right? And that's something I got from Goggins, because like when he set out to run 100 miles or raise money for a foundation or whatever the case may be, everyone would tell him it's impossible, you can't do it, and then he goes, but what if I did? And that just really stuck with me. But then why me? Why not me? I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's the whole thing, is that everyone has someone that they work well with. And if that person has said no to everyone else, maybe they just weren't compatible. I sure as heck ain't compatible with everyone, but maybe I have the right mentality, the right philosophy, and the right fit that just happens to work with that person. And if so, why wouldn't I give them that opportunity to just better their future and mine? Because the thing that I had to get over was that me being successful and me getting compensated well is strictly correlated with how many people I'm helping.
right.
When I help more people, I make more money. And I get it. It sounds like a typical sales thing, but it's genuinely true.
Yeah.
Like if I'm helping more people, that means that they're saying yes to my philosophy, saying yes to the help that I'm offering, and they're left in a better place. So
So
yeah, that's the only thing I can explain.
play devil's advocate because I think there's always like it's good to understand like the why not or like why people would say no. So let's flip it
Sure.
around and like why someone would say no and because I do think when you have both perspectives you can make a more well informed decision.
Sure. So why would someone say no to me?
Yeah, like why would someone not like stick with the status quo and not work with a financial advisor or yeah, exactly.
Uh, a lot of times it could just be due to insecurity as well. Some people aren't as proud of their balance sheet as they
Mm,
come off as they are.
yeah.
So like the motto nowadays is to everyone's fine.
Mm,
I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine.
mm,
Yep. Totally cool. And it's a very insecure subject for a lot of people. And then also some people just haven't got burned enough or feel like they never will. They have the Superman mentality,
mm,
right? Everything's always going to be okay. I got this, whatever the case may be. Other times might be because they've gotten other people burned. Like I met a guy that was a pilot at I believe it was Delta, and he was about 60 years old, and him and his wife had been through like almost three advisors. Two of them weren't even advisors; they were stockbrokers. So he would get calls in the middle of the day, and then the guy would say, "Hey, like you have to make this sale or make this move right now. Like tell me yes or no. If you don't do it, you're gonna miss the opportunity." So obviously the guy's gonna be like, "All right, yes," and then he ends up losing money or being in an uncomfortable position, or whatever the case may be. And then he had another advisor who, and this happens all the time too, is where you join and work with an advisor and they work at a certain firm, and then they move to another firm because they got like a massive package or they got like this huge buyout from like a bigger company or something, and now their structure isn't what the client wants, but the advisor still tries to bring them over, and they're just like why wouldn't you move over? It's just a different company, it's just a different company structure. But yeah, I get the fee structure is going to be a little bit different, but still, um, why don't you just move with me, right? So that's one big thing too, is that when you're looking for an advisor, you have to see how passionate they are about the
mm.
firm that they're working with and that longevity, because that could be a very, very big shift as you go from an RIA to a big firm or a small boutique firm, whatever the case may be. They're all very differently structured.
Right. Why do you think so many RIAs are so successful, right? Because obviously that's a I don't know how many trillion-dollar business, right? But like,
Mm-hmm.
is it because they have closer relationships? Like they have like, they know like I guess because I hear that could be an objection as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. RIAs definitely like one of the things that are super attractive about them is the fact that they essentially don't have any sort of proprietary ties. So like they're not with Northwestern. So like Northwestern, like since I work for Northwestern Mutual, I technically give them first right of refusal on all the business that I put through, but it's because I genuinely think that they're the best suited to actually do that for my clients. With an RIA, they don't have that. They don't have any sort of like bigger like mother company backing them. So the person that they're working with, they think that they're simply choosing that simply because they think it's the best, but not necessarily, right? And then also RIAs worry me because the person that owns the RIA, they get to choose who their compliance officers are. They get to choose and hand pick who their compliance people are. So therefore, they can have a lot more skate by and skate under the radar than necessarily a bigger firm. So
Yeah.
you pick and choose some of your battles.
I'm hearing like the big overall theme amongst like in this conversation is like your risks versus rewards, right? So it's like your what or
Correct.
is what ifs, right? So I
Correct.
a lot of us go like, how do you find that balance between like you don't want to put yourself in too much harm's way, but you know what I mean? Because I do think like some people are much more risk adverse than others. So like, how do you know what's the right balance for you?
Mm, honestly, I think it all just comes down to feel. It all comes down to who you trust and like and respect. Because at the end of the day, there are still certain people that do a great job and work at RIAs or they work at big banks and firms like JP, Goldman, UBS, or whatever the case may be, and they do a really great job on the asset management side. But at the end of the day, there are few firms out there I think that are doing like really good comprehensive planning where they're thinking about everything that can go wrong, everything that can go right, and everything else in between, and having the resources available to adequately plan for it. So, but at the end of the day, there are certain advisors out there that might not do as comprehensive planning, but can still get the job done. And it's just someone that once again gives you that peace of mind. Someone that's going to be able to be there for you during the good times and the bad. Like right now, we've had one of the sharpest declines in the market history, And if your advisor isn't reaching out to you, checking in on you, and just
Mm,
doing their job, then that's a huge issue because you're paying them a fee every single quarter or every single year. And frankly, when the market's doing well, everyone's successful, everyone's happy. It's really when the market's not doing well where advisors really make up their fee. That's where we do our best work, and that's where we actually get paid.
I see. Yeah, no, so you bring up a good point, right? Because like I guess the way I look at things is this is whatever how much X dollars, like is it worth for me to have more peace of mind? For me, it's like usually like I'll choose like peace of mind, right? Because it's like, well, like you're obviously like you're super passionate about like all of this more financial stuff and risk tolerance. And like for me, like I could give like zero shits about that, right? Like clearly like that's not one of my goals or priorities, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like but for people who are more into it, then it's like, okay, like that's fine. I can see why, because they want to have the control. They want to like, but I think even those people could be more open-minded to just like, hey, this is just a suggestion. You don't have to do what I say, but at least be open to like another suggestion, right?
Yeah, because I think you've even seen firsthand it too, like working with me now, is that a lot of the work that I do is a lot of added value stuff, right? It's consultations on even like refinancing mortgages or consolidating debts or figuring out different ways to save and different ways to view money, right?
Yeah.
Different ways to start thinking about tax strategies, like how intentional are we being with the accounts that we're using now and what the tax liability is going to be like in the future when we actually take distributions out. How are we allocating our investments today so that we do have a good exit strategy? Because when people think about investments, they just look at rate of return, but rate of return is only one variable when we think about considerations of all the numbers that we see on that screen, whether it's Vanguard, Robinhood, or whatever the case may be, are all artificial until we actually decide to take distributions.
Mm.
So we just want to make sure our clients are in the best position so that when they actually start taking money out, that they have the money they need, they have the money that we've calculated they actually are going to spend for the rest of their lives, and they're all set.
Yeah. So let me ask you, let me throw in a curveball. So what,
Sure.
because I hear a lot of times like money is just gonna amplify like who you are, right? So like,
Yeah.
what's your definition of wealth, and what's your like how do you think money is the avenue to reach whatever it is that you're trying to achieve?
Interesting. Um, so I think wealth is getting to the point where you don't have to think about money and take actions that you want. I think that's when you've hit true wealth, and that's going to be, it's extremely subjective, subjective question, of course. So wealth in my mind is the ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want, and not have to think about money. And I'm not just talking about getting like guac at Chipotle. I'm talking about like being able to take a vacation whenever you want
Mm,
and take your family and do whatever you want for the people that you love whenever you want and however much you want. Now, wealth, what can it do for us and like what can it provide? I definitely think it just provides flexibility at the end of the day. That's all it is. It provides you the flexibility to do what you want with nothing holding you back. Whether it's you want to be more philanthropic and donate more of your time to a cause that you really enjoy, most of the time you're going to have to put in the back end work first and foremost to build up that foundation and make sure that your family is all set, that
right.
your kids' education is paid for, and that your family can still have food on the table and a roof over their heads to be able to go on those sabbaticals and go travel the world and donate your time to different causes. So I think at the end of the day, it's just flexibility.
Mm. Yeah, so let's take a step back and like what if, because I think a lot of what we're saying is like it's great if like if we have a lifestyle, but let's say like there's someone who's like really like feels like they're like in a shit ton of like student loans, they're like they have a lot of credit card debt, whether it's like I don't know, whatever it is, maybe they just bought an engagement ring or whatever the case may be, right? But like
Sure.
what's your advice to how to like, you feel like you're stuck and you're like kind of insecure that you don't want to let people know about like what's going on because like they're just, like maybe it's like it's just very personal to you. So like let's start there. So what advice would you give to someone that maybe is there right now?
The first thing would just be to really focus on cash flow, see what's coming in, see what's going out, and automatically just like sit down with a professional and create some sort of plan, even if it's just a stepping stone where you're putting $50 here, $50 there, $50 there, but at least you're just starting to get the ball rolling. Like the one thing I tell people all the time is that saving, investing, and just putting money towards things is just like a muscle, right? Like you don't just hop in under the bar and just start benching 225. No, first you start off at the 25, then you work up to a 35, then you work up to a plate, and you keep on going and going and going. So savings and investing, paying off debts, whatever the case may be, is all simply just a muscle. It's something that the more that you do, the more that you're going to train it and the stronger you're going to get. So the dollars are just going to keep on flowing and flowing, and it's going to become easier and easier.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. So what I'm hearing is start slow, right? You don't have to like say, put if you're starting from scratch, like you don't have to like do 1,000 every day into a fund, right? Like that's just not realistic. Maybe saving $25 every paycheck, and then $50, and then as you
Yep.
up, one day you look back at it and you're like, oh wow, like that $50 or whatever turned into a $1 million like account that I just didn't even know about, because I just kind of like, it's like, oh, this is just like for my kids college fund or whatever the case may be.
Yep. One of the biggest sayings that like anyone in the investment game will know is just that it's not about timing the market, like timing the market. It's about time in the market, right? So when you look at the equation of compounding interest, like the one little, like the equation, there's essentially two parentheses, right? There's a one plus, and then they have like the percent, like the point, whatever. And then on top, there's like an NT.
Mhm.
So the T is time, right? So it's how many years or how many measurable periods, whether it's month, year, whatever the case may be. And that is the only sole exponent. So yes, the actual return or the interest is very important, but the T is the only one that's actually an exponent. So that's the most important variable, is that the time is going to be what's going to give you the most success.
No, I appreciate that. Well, and I feel like we could talk forever, but would love to like kind of like boil it down to like what are like just easy actionable like tips, like just for people to take away from this conversations that they can start. Like maybe this is overwhelming to them, or maybe like they've never even thought about like thinking about their finances. Like they're just like, oh, I'll let my I just let my parents to handle that, or my spouse or whatever. Like what would you recommend?
I think the first thing to start with in financial planning that was most impactful for me was creating a written budget. Writing down all of your fixed expenses and writing down exactly what your income is on a monthly basis, and just seeing it on paper and filling out some sort of Excel sheet or some sort of online resource that you have to see where the actual dollars are going and what the cash flow looks like. Because a lot of people, I find that when they don't put out every single one of their fixed expenses, I'm talking like super granular, like all the things that we overlook, like the Amazon memberships, the gym memberships, the subscriptions, the MTA, the rent, utilities, phone, gas, auto insurance, all these different things, they all add up so much. And if you're not conscious as to how much is on the left side of your budget sheet and how much is on the right side, left is usually fixed expenses, right's usually discretionary. There's usually a very, very lack of communication as to how much is left for discretionary. And that's why people end up overspending. If people know how much they have left over to spend, they can break that down very systematically as to how much they can keep themselves within their limits, so that they're still having enough money left over to be able to take care of the things that are important to them. And then one of the biggest things too, I think, is setting up direct deposits. Doing direct deposits from your pay stub immediately, and like just adding another account to your payroll, almost like another 401k. Because 9 times out of 10, when I go into a meeting and ask someone what's in your 401k, almost no one knows. No one ever knows. And it's because it's out of sight and out of mind.
Right.
So creating accounts that you don't check on a regular basis and just automatically starting to defer money into it, whether it's a brokerage account, a Roth IRA, an online savings account or something, just doing that systematically and taking your thoughts and emotions out of it, because those are probably the biggest hindrances to our overall financial plan.
Awesome, man. Well, this has been a very insightful conversation. I do think a lot of us are like afraid of, I know like me personally, like I was always like, oh, like that's like an area that I just don't want to go there, right? But since I'm
Yeah,
with you and Prem and other people, it's like, well, actually, like it's like you said, the motto is like you're fine, like it's fine, because I think the first step is kind of like acceptance, and it's like, all right, like just be cool with where you're at, because then once you accept that, then you can create an action plan, then you can like actually move on, right? And then
exactly.
and then the next step is like actually like get help, right? So it's like seeking people that are, that have much more of an analytical mindset, or who can be more like process oriented, so that way they can help you out if maybe that's not your forte, right? And then
Hmm.
the last step is actually like implementing it, right? It's like okay, I you can read a thousand books, but if you're not, putting away the money, then it's like, what's the point, right? So it's like actually implementation, I would say it's like the hardest out of the three, right? I'm sure out of like anyone could agree with that. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely, and it's tying it back to landmark. It's the same exact thing. That's why they have the SELP, where it's a long, drawn out course to really lock in a lot of ideologies and strategies, right? And then even the thing after the forum, right? That series course, the ten sessions, and that's where the accountability comes in, right? Having someone there to kind of hold your hand and make sure you're doing the things you need to do instead of doing the things that you want to do is just so vital. And I think that oftentimes is far too overlooked as to how it can lead you to success.
Hmm. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Brandon. This has been an insightful conversation. I know there's a lot of people that I know, that are very successful in many areas of their life. But what was that?
That's a celebration for the first podcast completed.
Yeah, let's do it. Woo! Thanks, everyone.